rise to the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God. We have the swearing in of our chief trustees who stood for election this year. So we'll do that first, and then I will open the public hearing on the budget.
Sternberg, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and I will faithfully discharge the duties of village trustees to the best of my abilities.
Yeah. So we got this picture too.
I, Audrey Forge, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of
So glad we didn't scare you away. At this point, I am going to open the budget hearing for the 2025-26 tentative budget. So is there anyone who would like to speak about that?
Yeah, I just wanted to stop by, and I sent down a letter requesting that the line item 83410.490, which is the repairs of vehicles, be increased. We've had some issues in the last month and a half on a couple of our vehicles, and I've had to move around almost all the money I have to spare on those things, and the had a call up at the ARC a couple weeks ago. The generator, which does our overhead light for lighting the scene, and also all of the outlets on our truck, so that when we have exhaust fans bring smoke out of the building or whatever, so we can see, burned up. It started smoking, and the bindings and everything cannot be rebuilt. He has to get a new generator for it. They've been trying to get an estimate for us, but because it comes from out of the country, there's been a problem with them getting a quote, and I don't know for sure. And the repairman at Garrison didn't know for sure, but John, who's the manager, when I said to him, "Is this because of possible tariffs?" He had said, "I believe so, but I can't say for sure." They hadn't told him that, so he didn't want to go on record for saying that. So the cost of a new generator installed will be between $25,000 and $30,000. We have 21,000 in for repairs, and we're asking for the 30,000 that will allow us to pay for it and not get into our budget for next year, when that that'll at least give us what we normally have for the rest of the year. If we can just increase it now in this year's budget for next year, if we could increase it by the 30,000, and that would it'll increase the safety of our firefighters. Will be compromised if we don't get the increase, as well as the ability to perform our duties at calls Right now, what we're doing is we're still using the truck. We can't use a generator. And, we're using portable lighting system that we have. But we wouldn't want to go through a whole year doing that. It would be, a detriment to the safety of the firefighters because that only lights up a specific area. It doesn't light up the whole scene. And we need the scene when we're working with the jaws and working with firefighting to see where we're going in and out of buildings that are completely dark because the power's been cut off. So
These lightings they're telescoping lightings. I see some people are questioning. And it's like almost like stadium lighting. It lights up the whole scene for us. So it's essential at times to have good visual lighting.
So that would increase our budget to a total of $133,811 with the $30,000 addition in there.
Does anybody, yes, you have a question, Joe?
My question is, what, if any money we have in this year's budget remaining to be probably allocated for that purpose
For this year,
in this year's budget?
for under fire department, you're talking about,
Yeah.
pretty much all of the money has been moved around to pay for the repairs that we had to do in the last 2 months. One repair was a turbo for the motor on the rescue truck that was over $16,000. We had the springs on the tanker, which broke. And when they were fixing those, they found that the brakes on the back of the truck had to be replaced. They couldn't release the truck back until the brakes were done. And so we had enough money to do all that. I still have to come down and move a little bit more money that we have. We forego getting the 3 sets of turnout gear that we had in there and move that money into the repairs. We've taken some other money. Next thing that we're gonna be taking is recruitment and retention money, so we can pay Garrison for the last thing. So you won't be getting very much money back from the fire department at the end of this year to put in your general fund. Sorry.
We always have good value for that. My one question is, this is a repair cost you're asking to be in the 25-26 budget.
Correct.
Or I'm sorry, 25-26
Correct.
budget, and it won't be available to June 1st. So the payment for this repair?
By the time they get it, it'll be there because they have to order it still.
Okay,
And just so you know, the times, usually they give you like 60 days or something to decide. Once they give us the pricing, it's 2 weeks. Because they said they're afraid prices are just gonna keep going, so they're given a 2-week lead time. So what they said they would do is if we prove this and they know the money's gonna be there, they will order it within that 2 weeks, and as soon as June comes, they'll get it installed. And I guess we've already talked to the village crew, and they're willing to bring up one of their bucket loaders to lift the old one out. While repair will be done here, they have to take apart the top, the repairman will take apart the top of the truck. And then they'll bring the bucket loader so they can lift that one out and then put the new one in. Otherwise, we'd have to bring the truck back down to Garrison. And so it'll be done a lot faster by having the village highway help us with that.
okay, Joe?
Yeah, again, following our financial opportunities, in this proposed budget, we have under fire equipment reserve $856,000. Can that play a role in this?
You have seen the budget we're going to be having the public hearing
Yes.
on
Yeah.
tonight. If that's what you have.
I haven't seen the full one, but I've seen the just the fire department side.
Or 25-22.
Yeah, so that number, $856,549 is our fire equipment reserve. And I'm just wondering if we have a need for that.
Well, it's intended for replacement.
Yeah.
It's not repair.
Well, but this is a lighting system that's
replacement. This is a fire equipment reserve. I didn't think it was related to vehicles.
It actually is, if you think about it, we actually have a form that figures out exactly when the equipment is being replaced and how much we should be putting in reserves each year. Or we won't have the funds in there when certain vehicles are need to be replaced. So as long as you are comfortable with a June 1st being able to pay this bill, I think that's something we can totally consider, this increasing this line item.
Yeah, I personally would hate to see it come out of the reserve fund just for some fact that we have one truck that's going on 30 years past being replaced. There's nothing wrong with it, so we keep using it. But you know, we're looking at just off the top of the head, if you were to order a new rescue truck now, like we have, that's due to be replaced in 31. I think you looked it up on the.
Yeah, I did.
But if that is replaced on time, that truck, which cost us $474,000, is probably going to cost us over close to $1.5 million. I mean, it's just prices have just gone up drastically, and the wait time is 3 years to get something built. So, you know, and I'm just saying $1.5 million because that gives us a little time to get there. Right now, I think they're about $1.2 million, or excuse me, about right around $1 million for that.
There any other questions? No? Thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thank you.
For all you do.
Thank you for putting us at the top. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm going to leave the public hearing open in case someone else comes in to speak on that. Molly, you're sitting there so patiently. We have a whole sort of organizational meeting thing to run through, but I'd be more than glad to jump to your letter of no objection, which is in our packets and for discussion. So if everyone wants to just pull that. From your budget or from your packet. Are there any questions? Molly very nicely submitted a letter that we would obviously put on our letterhead. So it really is a matter of approving a letter of no objection, which would allow her business to Cooperstown Coworks to have up to 12 one-day alcohol events in permits in the calendar year 2025.
Is this what you discussed?
Yes, so
Yeah, you might need to move your microphone closer to you when you're doing
Okay. So we're 4 months into this, so in the next 8 months, you will have, well, I think you may have up to 12 events.
We've already used 3 permits. And so this, one thing I just want to clarify, this allows us to apply to the liquor authority for up to 12. It doesn't mean that we get to skip the application process. We still have to submit all the documents and go through the whole application, and then they choose to approve or deny. So
And you'll attach this letter to each time you make an application.
to apply. We've already used.
You know, just subject to Martin's review of this for legal sufficiency, I'm fine with it, but I would like his review.
is there a motion then?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Subject to village attorney review of the letter.
I object.
Second, oh, I'm sorry.
I object. I don't think there's a need to get this reviewed by Martin. This is a standard protocol with the state liquor authority that they require. All they're asking is we allow them to apply. The liquor authority makes the decision. I don't know what needs to go any further than that.
My thought was there may be regulations to refer to. This could be a little more formally done so that we're not having the letter deemed to be insufficient by the recipient board. I'm not familiar, I haven't done this before, so I just want to get it right the first time.
Well,
I think-
if the person that gets hurt, if it's insufficient, is Molly, and I think she's comfortable with the letter, having discussed it with the liquor authority with what she needed.
I'm not making that.
It seems like the motion's been made and seconded. It can be, I will note that I will make sure I'll even go there after this meeting and put it on his desk. So I'm sure, it
Okay.
will be quickly kind of reviewed. And if he feels there'd be no concerns, we certainly couldn't get it on our letterhead and sent out before tomorrow anyway. So I don't think that additional step will delay anything in the approval process.
That makes me comfortable. Thank you.
So the motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. You're welcome. All right. So now we will go back to where our meeting was starting. Let me go back and move that off. And I will begin and appoint the deputy mayor for 2025, Cindy Falk. That is an appointment that requires no board approval. And I know Cindy has an appointment she'd like to make.
Yes, I would like to appoint Martin Tillapa as the village attorney. Is there someone who would make a motion to approve that appointment?
So moved.
Is there a second? There are 3 seconds. I saw, I saw Hannah first. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And I'm up in abstention, Jenna. All right. I will now ask for a motion to approve my appointment of all the administrative personnel on the first sheet of your village officials list. Made by Audrey, second by Cindy, all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Moving on to all the committees and boards. There are 3 pages of all our committees and boards. And I will ask for a motion to approve those appointments. This, just so everyone's clear on this, any board that had, for instance, planning board has a 3-year term of office. If you see that they are, 2028, you will know they were up this year. So essentially, we are appointing those individuals or all the positions that were renewed for just 1 year. Some of the committees are just 1 year. When we approved, for instance, Ellen Pope to planning board in 2024, it was for the 3-year term. There's no changing their terms or their positions. So is there a motion to approve? Made by Audrey, second by George, all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Moving on. We need a motion to designate our official newspapers, Daily Star and Freeman's Journal.
Moved.
By Cindy.
I had a question about that.
Let's get a second. Hannah seconded.
Question about it. What is the circulation of the Freeman's Journal versus the Cooperstown Crier?
I know when we approved them as an official newspaper the first time, those statistics were cited.
Okay.
But I can't tell you off the top of my head.
I believe the Daily Star owns the Cooperstown Crier.
Right, but it's not the same thing. They own it. I just bring it up because I get Cooperstown Crier. I pay for the Freeman's Journal.
The Crier is a free publication, so it is.
So everybody, every household in the village should be getting it. So
This is the Daily Star, not the Crier, remember?
I'm saying,
Okay.
in addition to those two, I would say the Crier, because everybody in the village gets that delivered to their home. That's all.
I don't.
But do they allow?
They publish.
Yeah.
They don't do legal notices per se.
They'll do whatever ad we want them to do, won't they?
No, but isn't, I'm sorry, is the
All right.
Daily Star, the paper of record, and the Cooperstown Crier is an incident to that paper? You don't get the Crier without getting the paper.
No, absolutely not.
You do get it
Everybody
free.
gets the Crier for free. So everybody gets the Crier. Not everybody gets the Star. In fact, I don't know very many. I mean, I think there are a few people get the Star, and a large number of people get the Freeman's Journal. But the one village paper that every household in the village gets is the Crier. I think they should be added to this.
I'm not sure they're considered one of the, oh, I'm sorry, Glenn.
It could be an additional charge to do another publication in their other thing.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah,
I made my point.
what you should know, Richard, is we've cited the Freeman's Journal. These are the circulations that we utilize.
Right.
Freeman's Journal also does Hometown
Yeah.
Oneonta, which is the free, and the Crier is the free to Cooperstown to sort of combat that. So these aren't their ones where they do per se the legal notices for these papers. So the motion's been made and seconded. All in favor to designate Daily Star and Freeman's Journal as our official newspapers, please say aye. Moving on, finance resolution number 1, authorizing payment for public utility services. Is there a motion?
Moved.
By Cindy, second by Joe, all in favor?
Aye.
Finance resolution number 2, reimbursement of travel expenses. Motion by Audrey, second by George, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
On finance resolution number 3, Christy and I were chatting about this today. And we realized that on page 2, the designation of depositories and our maximum amount, at times before we shift funds to, for instance, night class, we could exceed 7.5 million in the Bank of Cooperstown. So with the change of making that 8 million, I will ask for a motion to approve finance resolution number 3 by Audrey, second by Joe.
I do have a question.
Sure.
Following in a second. Is there the same potential with my class?
No, we were checking the balances and we seem pretty comfortable there.
So this is an annual judgment?
Excuse me?
This is an annual judgment?
We're at this motion that was just made with the change. Next year's will have 8 million when you get it in your packet and 6 million, and it'll be in your packet. And we'll look at that. And if anything needs changing, it would be changed at that time.
Yeah, I had that. I was wondering about that limitation, so I'm glad you brought it up.
Okay, so motion was made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Moving on, now having made that change on finance resolution number 3, we also need to make that change on finance resolution number 4. So it's going to be 8 million for Bank of Cooperstown. Is there a motion?
Motion.
By Cindy, second by Joe, all in favor?
Aye.
Moving on, we have finance resolution number 5, authorizing cash advance for travel expenses. Moved by Audrey, second by Hannah, all in favor?
Aye.
We have in our packet a NICOM some pages from the NICOM publication. And it's recommended, particularly if you're new and you haven't joined it yet, all as elected officials in New York State, we belong to NICOM, New York Conference on Mayors, and they have a lot of great resources and publications. So it's recommended you go on, set up your login, get your password, and utilize all those great resources. This is just a section of the much larger publication that is available from the website digitally to download. But if you ever have kind of questions on meetings and procedures, et cetera, that gives you a lot of guidance for. Number 12, we're going to begin reviewing and adopting the following policies and procedures. I think it was inadvertently the rules of procedures trustee meetings, which we adopt annually, weren't in the packet. They were emailed to you. I have a motion to approve the rules and procedures for village trustee meetings by Audrey, second by George.
I have a debatable point, please.
Sure.
I've asked this question and I finally think I have an answer. I keep saying our rules and procedures can't just be 5 rules, but in fact, I cannot find anywhere else where we have anything that refers to anything else. For example, I went and looked at the Senate and the Assembly rules and procedures, and they both go over 200 pages. So what do we do? It's not clear what happens when there's a discrepancy or a minority here wants to make a point. So what is the mechanism for that?
The mechanism for making
Well,
it.
for example, I want to object to something. I want to move something to the table. I want to rise to a point of order. None of that is allowed under what's listed here. It just doesn't say one way or the other. So basically, as far as I'm concerned, we have 6 rules. For example, rules of parliamentary procedure, like over 500 pages, rules of order over 500 pages. And I understand that they do not always carry. Many organizations, United States Senate, United States House, New York Assembly, New York Senate, have their own rules and procedures, but they do have them clearly documented. So I'm suggesting we either accept Robert's Rules of Order with exceptions as we write here, or we come up and put together an ad hoc committee to come up with a list of rules for how the meeting should be run.
Yes, Joe?
Well, I first note that these are general rules of procedure, so they're more comprehensive in nature. And Richard, it seems to me, with respect to your specific question, if a member while speaking is called to order, that would be a point of order that would subsume a member of this board making a point of order when someone else is speaking and calling to that point. So there is a process on the face of this that gets to that specific.
Actually, it doesn't, Joe. Under this, one has to be recognized. Under parliamentary procedure, any member of the parliament may rise and say, I rise to a point of order at any point at any time without being recognized. This requires recognition, which means the power to recognize or not recognize is the power to determine where things are going to go.
Right.
I'm sorry, Joe.
No, I think it's, if one looks at this closely, there are 2 sentences. The first one says, a member once recognized shall not be interrupted when speaking, unless to call him or her to order. Second sentence, if a member while speaking is called to order, I don't think that precludes anybody in this board, while someone else is speaking, is called to order by making a point of order.
Respectfully, Joe, you read the first sentence. A member once recognized shall not be interrupted when speaking. that completely precludes somebody from standing up and say, I rise to a point of order. That specifically precludes that.
I think the second one explains it, but there's no need to.
Yeah.
Um,
These are really specific to what we adopt. Again, I would really encourage, this is the guideline, the handbook for elected officials. This is what we abide by. It's 73 pages. And it has an incredible page, material on meeting procedures, and we abide by this. NICOM actually says that, if you get hung up on parliamentary procedures, sometimes you don't have the free discussion that should occur around a table. We haven't really had any proven incidents where there've been issues, but certainly if we have, we can revisit this. But at this time, I would ask for approval of our rules of procedure. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Richard, thank you. Moving on, we have our code of ethics. As elected officials, we all need to abide by these code of ethics, and it's a good idea to read them carefully. And in your approval of this policy, you are affirming that you agree with them. So motion to approve the code of ethics
So moved.
by Cindy, second by
Second.
Hannah, all in favor?
Aye.
Moving on, procurement policy. Is there a motion to approve our procurement policy?
Also,
Joe, second by George. All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
We have public access to records of the Village of Cooperstown. A motion to approve that, please.
Moved.
Moved by Cindy, second by Audrey. All in favor? Let's see, we're at Village of Cooperstown Injury and Illness Prevention Program for Workplace Violence. This is our program and policy. So is there a motion to approve that? By George, second by Audrey, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I should point out at this time that every single one of our employees has presented the certification for their workplace violence prevention program, as well as the next one on our agenda, the policy against discrimination and harassment. Those are required, absolutely mandatory. I did check with the village office, and we have a new trustee, so you might not be aware of that. If you do, for instance, the discrimination and harassment program at your place of work, that certificate can be brought to the village. The workplace violence cannot, because workplace violence is specific to your workplace. So that one needs to be done every year. These are programs that Jenna does a great job sending out from NYMER when there's a online class, and it takes maybe 45 minutes for each of these, and they're pretty effective, and you get the materials so you can always refer to them later. So I encourage everybody to do it because it is the law in New York State. Yeah. So we did do the workplace violence, right? So now we move on to the policy against discrimination and harassment. May I have a motion to adopt that? By Audrey, second by Hannah, all in favor?
Did we do the reasonable accommodation policy?
Did we do that again? This
Oh,
is the
next,
next
okay,
one.
fine. Well, books in order.
Yeah.
Thank you, sorry.
So now we're at the reasonable accommodation policy and grievance procedures. Motion to approve that process by Audrey, second by,
I'll second.
I saw Joe's hand up.
Okay.
Joe, all in favor?
Aye.
The police reform plan, for those of you who've been on the board, particularly since 2020, this was a state mandated requirement of all municipalities with a police force. This is the plan that was adopted and approved by the Village Board of Trustees on February 2021 and has been reviewed and amended as needed since that time. Is there a motion on our plan?
Moved.
By Cindy, second by Audrey, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Policy for installation, operation, and maintenance of fixed location cameras by the Cooperstown Police Department. This requires annual approval, I guess. It was initially approved March 27th, 2023. Is there a motion? By Cindy, second by George, all in favor?
Aye.
You're not objecting?
No,
Oh, and I'm sorry, Joe.
I voted aye.
And two noes?
No, I said I voted aye on that.
Oh, okay.
I didn't open
Sorry,
my
I'm
mouth
sorry.
quickly enough before he said he didn't.
Did we get through it all? I think so.
Great, wonderful.
All right.
Yes, it had two parts to it.
Oh, okay.
Two parts. Yeah. All right, so now we're on to new business. And the first item on the agenda, we have already addressed Molly's request for a letter of no objection. We have status of new computer workstations from Paul Schechter. The reason this is on your agenda, as you know, we approved the purchase in this budget cycle of the computer equipment. That cost was just for the computer equipment. Basically, you can read his indication of what he would like to do. So essentially, he is offering to take the old equipment, which essentially we would have had to have him take and wipe anyway, and then basically trade the value of that equipment rather than us paying him separately. So that's the point of discussion.
So my only question is, what are our requirements when it comes to surplus property, disposition of?
That is what we're doing. We would be declaring them surplus.
But isn't there a procedure when you declare something
And
surplus,
you-
if there's a marketplace has access to it to,
Then we will have to pay him to clean them and then surplus it, if that's what
Right.
you would like. This is
No,
the
no,
discussion.
I'm just trying to
Yeah.
find out how we have to process this, not what would be what we would like to do versus what we're required to do under our surplus property regulations. And I'm not that familiar with them, but I do know that we do a lot of surplusing of property and we are very careful about how we go about that. So this is basically a barter proposal that we're getting from the
Mhm.
vendor.
I'm comfortable with his proposal, but I think we need some way to verify that the information has been wiped, whether that's an affidavit from him, indicating that, but some sort of formal document that he has taken possession of, but also wiped our data from the equipment.
And how is that enforced? I mean, I just took a course with my firm today online about security and data. What happens with data access mistakes? So we're turning over this equipment to presumptively trustworthy vendor, but how do we paper that? You say an affidavit. I mean, I don't even know what. Unless there was some inspection of the equipment after it's wiped, does that?
I'd be happy
Makes
to, I'd be
sense.
happy to witness him doing it.
I'm not technically proficient enough to know that. it's
Nor am I.
So that's my only concern. I like what he's offering. This is reasonable, it's practical, but I don't know if it complies with our regulation with what we're subject to.
Yes. I thought it was a reasonable offer. My experience, having been in that office for a while, is that we seem to accumulate. There are literally were boat anchors in there that were on top of file cabinets, and I mean scanners that printed only on certain paper by a program that no one had on their computer, and that had been obsolete and not used by staff for 15, 20 years. So we currently have 2 hard drives in there that have sat in there unused for over 10 years that we just wanted to make sure we were moving along well financially with that data, because that was a data crash that went back to, I think it was like 2013. So he will be kind of doing that. We've secured his services to clean those out. So he has certainly in his capacity working for us, taken care of a lot of surplus equipment is all I will say. And I don't know if we even ever surplus that, but it was so old, we basically had to take it to purge the data and take it to a recycling center.
As you
So-
agree- Go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead, Richard.
No.
Well, I'm just you've raised another point for me. Is there data that we should be preserving in a hard drive? I mean, take it off that equipment.
In this particular equipment, you do realize this is all our workstations in the office, and there he's basically going to remove the files from the old equipment to get them on the new.
Okay,
It's
so there
not,
won't be- okay,
yeah.
Won't be lost there.
That's not even done with the new server. So these are just sitting there already removed. The data that we need to continue with our work.
Okay.
So these are just sitting there waiting to be completely cleaned out
Thing.
and then go from there of, tearing it apart, restoring, doing whatever we need to do. But I do have IT background that I can witness if that's something that would make you guys comfortable of him cleaning it completely out. I am aware of how that goes. If that helps any.
It does.
Yeah, I just think we need verification that it's been done.
All right. So was that the motion that we would accept this offer with that verification made by, I'm sorry,
It can be me.
that was you, and second by Cindy.
Sure.
All in favor?
I
hope he takes the mimeograph machine.
Thank you. Thank you all. Text my gov, you have some additional material was emailed, right, Jenna? And I, because we did not pay this invoice and they are calling quite frequently, wondering what we're doing. Jenna had reached out to them, and I also reached out to the contact that Jenna provide. So just so you know, this, if you go to our website, the first thing you see is that notice to sign up for Text My Gov on our homepage. And if you click for learn more, you go to this site on our village website, which reads, and this was provided by Text My Gov. The Village of Cooperstown is excited to announce that Text My Gov text alerts and notifications are now live. Text My Gov is a new text messaging service that will provide residents with important information such as road closures and water shutoffs directly to your cell phone. And it basically tells how you text a certain number and you can opt in. And it concludes with, we are excited to offer this new way of communicating with residents and look forward to sharing important notifications with you in the future. This will not replace our Facebook and website notifications, but is an additional tool to communicate with you. So the bill, we questioned it last month of $2,750, and we learned that essentially a lot of notices are just put on our Facebook page or social media rather than using this. I did sign up. So I did call, and I will point out that this is, I think, our new person, Emma Carlson, who's handling our account for TextMyGov. I called 3 days in a row and left messages and didn't get a return phone call. Finally, on the fourth day, I did get a phone call. And I said, we're just trying to understand how, if this is meeting the needs of our village for this cost, $2,750. And I said, I understand that there's supposedly 1,173 email addresses, and this was provided to you. So it's broken down into 3 categories that those, what totals 1,173. 100, first of all, the village of Cooperstown gave TextMyGov our mailing list, basically our person contact list for our water and sewer bills, our meters. That had 1,100 names on it. In addition, they received all of our taxable property addresses and info. So together, that was probably close to 2,000. They then took that list and determined, okay, these are landlines, they're not applicable. This percentage, these are text, and then they text them and said, do you want to opt into this service? And of that, 2,175, what we know confirmed village residents said yes. So there are 175 of the emails. 94 signed up by clicking on our website, that little tab that's there, and they had no data on those. It could be someone from California, looking up information on Cooperstown and put their text number in there. That was 94. And I said, well, then where did the balance come? If you got most of our village residents and utility users, and they said, we have a database of all 13326 addresses. And I said, well, that 13326 stands much beyond the village of Cooperstown. I said, I have a friend who lives on Chlorinator Road in Milford, and that's a 13326. And the same is true for someone you think might be in Fly Creek, and in the Fly Creek zip code, they don't. It's a Cooperstown. And she said, well, it was the 13326, and it's 904 numbers came from that. So I basically felt we should all have this information. They did say, oh, but we're offering a new service where we can do a survey. And I said, oh, we might be interested in that. How does that work? We design a survey, and for a fee,
Of course.
they will do the responses. They'll tabulate the responses. So essentially, for what we're getting now and no additional services like a survey, it's the 2,750 at this point to text 175 confirmed village residents. So, and I know, Cindy, you want this
No,
service.
I do. And part of the reason is those 94 people who opted in, if we get rid of this and decide to start over again, they're not going to opt in a second time.
We don't know what service we could go to. I will say, and you presented this, I was asking about, how many were on our utility list. So I was in the treasurer's office, and Christy had this information, and I'll certainly let you speak to it because you know it more than I, of how this works. Could it handle 1,000?
It
Text.
can. So, what it is just, I'm sure everyone has had robocalls. They're annoying, but all we have to do is submit our list of all the phone numbers that and then we just create the message and send it to them. And I don't recommend doing it monthly. What I would recommend is sending them, doing a credit line, and then as we use it, store it might up a little bit more. Because from my understanding, we've only sent out 3 messages all of last year. So for 3 messages that hit everybody, I think you would get further with the robocall than we will text my gov. And then that'll let everybody whether they want to sign up for it or not. And then they have the opt to block the number, but the robocalls always change their numbers, so even if they block it this time, they're still gonna be hit, and it does allow you to know which one's a landline and what's in a text message, and then it gives you that option to text or call. So you have both options, so people that do have text, you get their message, and people that have called, they'll get a message and then it'll get put on their voicemail, or if they answer, they'll hear it. So it's kind of like a doctor's office that's calling you.
Right, yeah. I find what you're proposing appealing. I've had a glancing association with robocalls, and they were very cheap to do, and
Yeah.
and the benefit I see is that it's a controlled environment. The fact that we disclose to a commercial entity like TextMyGov all of this information about our villagers, even if it's just their name, number, where they live, I find that a little problematic. Just because of, again, all this training I'm getting on cybersecurity, there's so many portals you get open inadvertently, not maliciously, that can lead to compromise. So I think if we have public safety in mind and public information in mind, the robocall sounds efficient and safer to me and more cost effective.
I think it would be more cost effective for all of you guys, for our budgets and whatnot, because if you do it by the credit, it allows us, you can do the max credit. So which the max for $750 for the year, and it gives you 15,000 credits, which 15,000 for 3 calls, I think we'll still have leftover. Because of the way they do it, it's like a 5 cents kind of a deal.
Right, especially if we're controlling the volume of calls. We're not doing Milford residents, and we're doing, this is for our.
And this would be for our customers, so we would take the data off of our information from our accounts, from our meters and that we have, and then whoever else you guys want to build, it would be very easy to build the data. And then it would be stored into the software that you just put in, and then all you do is just put the message that you want, and then you can choose both text and voice, or one or the other. So it gives you
All I ask is if it's going out by phone, that the name Village of Cooperstown goes out, because if I see something and it doesn't come up, it's not in my
Address book.
address book, thank you. Or it doesn't say where it's from, clearly, I don't pick it up.
Yeah,
And we can.
yeah, I think that's
to that
my
end,
concern.
We could in our Village Voices and otherwise, we can publicize the fact that we're inaugurating this program. Look out for this number. It's not a spam. It's here. We're here to help.
Yeah,
Sort of
there's
thing.
ways around what you're looking for that would definitely.
Oh, here it is.
I just personally have used it. I worked for a company during COVID, and that's how we sent out all of our mass text messages and called for delays on, it was a garbage company, but delays on pickups and, days being moved, and it was universal nice, because we were able to send out also, hey, bills are due, and I just know it's benefited the company a lot by it. And got their message, so they were able to determine on what was going on.
Did you say that the number changes?
You could have it changed if you wanted to, but the number does, like they will assign you a phone number.
Mhm.
And then inside the program, it allows you to put our information. So the phone number will register as ours.
I think there are other ways that we could do this. You're suggesting one, we could potentially work with Otsego County. We could work with New York Alert. I don't know that we can make that decision tonight. And I don't want to drop the ability for $2,700 that we budgeted for. I do think there are other ways and probably cheaper ways to do it, but I'm just not ready at this moment to commit to one of them.
I think if we drop this, because literally we're being a little bit, we're fielding phone calls in the office. You didn't pay this, you didn't pay this. I think they're going to be more than willing to kind of drop us. I'm concerned about the list that they say, oh, we have 1,173 people, and we know now it's like 175 are confirmed village residents. I think this is an expense that I wouldn't go with no matter what. So I don't think it behooves us to renew this or pay this invoice.
I just checked my phone. 3 times in the last year, I've gotten texts. The third time, they sent 3 texts, one after the other.
From this?
Yeah,
I had 3, but it came in last September as 3 separate ones.
right, exactly. In
Yeah.
September, one day I got 3 separate ones about plumbing and all that other stuff.
Yep. Yeah. We did put a notice, I looked back, when we first did this, we put an article in our Village Voices, and people could have signed up there if they'd been interested. I think the bottom line is, it was interesting because when I was speaking to this young woman, I said, you must have found a lot of our utility users and property from our property list. Those were landlines. And yeah, it was like 80%. So this text isn't necessarily the best way. Maybe a robocall is a more, because it can go to either type.
Right. I mean, the people that I work with at SUNY Oneonta are never going to answer their phone, especially as Richard said, to a number they don't recognize. So it would have to have the ability to
It doesn't
text.
go to a voicemail then, so it's still the message.
They're not going to check. My kids haven't even set up their voicemails.
For either one, but, for more money, they now.
So they won't pick up and they don't set up their voicemail.
For more money.
Oh,
I didn't ask the amount, they said that they can now send messages somehow to landline.
I'm just worried about.
Thank you, Jen.
I have a
Remain worried
question.
about the data harvesting side of it and the inefficiency of it, and I think we are not in a place where we risk dropping the ball on a critical notification.
So what's the mechanism? We have a call-in number for people to find out what's going on.
We have everything that's going on right now. I mean,
No, I mean.
if we want to enhance our notification system, I think we could do that deliberately, but I don't think we have to do it by means of this, and I don't think. My own view is that we don't need to use this as a bridge.
I should also,
mechanism either.
oh, I'm sorry, Jim.
No,
I should point out that we thought maybe we should see if like our fire safety would want it as well, public safety. And so I did check with the fire department, and they said it was not something they per se were interested in utilizing.
What if we set it up, to answer Joe's question? What if we set it up to, the phone numbers we best know about people? When we have the cell phone number, and we can recognize a cell phone versus a local landline number. Well, if it's about Ma Bell, I don't know about the others. But then we can send them, if we know that the number is cell phone, we can send them a text. If we know that the number is not a cell phone, we can send them a voicemail. And I wonder how much it would cost to do the hardware for that.
Well, Christie says there's an alternative system for doing that. That isn't TextMyGov. And Jen is reporting that TextMyGov will charge you more to have the landline option. So I don't know. I don't think it's worth the candle to do this.
I think it's important to get the communication, but I agree with you. I don't think this is the way to do it.
All right, is there a motion to approve the invoice 2,670, oh, nope, which is it? I got the wrong one in front of me. 2,750 to TextMyGov.
I'll make the motion.
Made the motion, second by,
This is for the past year?
No, this is.
This is going, no,
Going forward.
We're calling the question. of-
So motion to pay it or not to pay it? What was the,
well, he made a motion to pay it, so if you pay it,
okay,
if you
I will second.
second it,
the
so
motion
this
to
is a
pay.
motion, all those in favor of the motion to pay this invoice, please raise your hand.
Can I just ask Cindy
Uh-huh.
a question? Your fear is that if we don't do this, they're going to just like delete the data and then we would have to start over if we decide to.
Yes.
Okay.
And that to me is a plus. I think they're gonna harvest the data and use it for what they can.
Well, I think we're gonna have to do exactly what you're afraid of, Joe, and that is we're gonna have to provide the data to yet another provider.
We can,
We have it from our water and sewer bills and our,
Right. Right, but what Joe's saying is he doesn't like the idea of giving out data. And
No.
now we're talking about doing that a second time.
but I thought the robocall, we control that. That's the difference. We're not giving it to a company.
It would
We,
be in-house control, where we put the information in, and if we would have a third party to do it for us. We would personally download the information, download our message, and then we submit it out to the customer.
and we can certainly put this in the Village Voices, this idea, if that's where it's and the idea. And if so, you do not want this, call or whatever. And I'm sure there must be an opt-out. There's an opt-out, so it's controlled. Okay, so the motion has been made to pay this invoice and seconded. All those in favor of paying this invoice, say, raise your hand. Cindy, okay. All those opposed to paying this invoice, raise your hand. Okay. Right. Thank you. I know it's difficult. We want to do the right thing and
Of course, they already have all.
I have a question. How quickly can we implement this other system?
It technically could be up and running by the end of the week. It's a very easy software.
Christie, I think that you know how to do this, because I worked very hard with text my dog to get all this information out to them, and I'm not looking forward to doing it again.
No. I definitely software that I've used and I personally.
I do want to point out, though, the concern about them harvesting our data. That bird is flown. They have it already.
right, and let's not persist with writing more.
Yep. Okay, so we're moving on to the next item, which is we have a invoice from General Code in the amount of $2,677 for our supplement number 8. This was the update to all of our 2024 laws.
I'll move the payment, but I have a question after we get. a
Okay,
second.
I'll second.
motion and seconded by Cindy.
Didn't we take up this code issue at our last meeting?
It was maintenance, it was a different invoice, this is for the actual update. The other one was the annual maintenance that we pay them every year.
Okay.
There's
Thank
two
you.
different invoices.
Thank you.
All right, motion to approve the payment of this invoice.
That's been made. Now we're just voting.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
We made the motion and seconded. Now we're voting.
Yeah, now you're,
Okay.
oh, I'm sorry, you
Yeah.
vote.
Okay.
Those who are voting, I have my hand up. I was voting, Joe. All right. Moving on, application to use the Village Park Lakefront boat launch from Robert Demott, ABT Alliance for Bass Tournaments on April 13th, May 4th, and May 18th, 2025, from 6 a.m. until 4 p.m.
I'll make a motion to approve.
By Cindy, second by Anna, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, so at this time, I'm not opening, I am closing the public hearing for the 2025 tentative budget. And as we normally do, we've heard one comment tonight, which I will say is about the first comment we've had in about 4 years in any of our public budget meetings. We will probably be reviewing some of these proposals and on our April, whatever it is, 28th meeting, we will note all those changes and formally adopt that budget. So there'll be changes to this number 4, proposed budget number 4. And we will, we can discuss it that night and then formally approve it prior to the May 1st deadline.
If we have items, do you want to know about them this evening?
I would like maybe to get them, make sure they're into finance committee, and then we'll make sure that they are, and finance committee meets the Thursday before our board meeting.
April 23rd.
Yeah,
If, well, understanding that, but I think if, there are a couple of things I'd like to raise tonight that have been, they're both under parks. I want to address the question of the safety of that lakefront walkway. There's still lingering effects to the injury that occurred in March. I don't know what it takes for us to initiate a review of a redesign of that lakefront, and this is kind of like Pioneer Alley. It's not just a cosmetic thing of the walkway itself, but how it'll be landscaped, and it'll just be a revision of it of some sort. But if we don't get started on that, I just think it's very troublesome to me that we're leaving what's manifestly an unsafe walkway in place. So
Well, I think you'll be pleased to know that it was discussed in parks today, and I think we're gonna start looking at some pricing options, but that doesn't help with the budget this quickly. I mean, we could try to figure it out, but
yes, so where these things dovetail is, what does it take to have a deliberate effort? Does it require money to take a deliberate effort at designing something for revamping the waterfront? And if it does take money, then I'd like to see something in the budget. I just don't think sitting around and blue skying, oh, this or that or the other, it needs it's a serious undertaking in what I envision scoping, which is stabilizing the bulkhead and proceeding back from the water from there to have this thing be a much more effective place to visit and a place to keep the soil from eroding and have the visual experience that people seek.
We also have a current safety issue because the boards there, whatever they're very, very very slippery when they're wet. And I'm just gonna raise, a thought here. Is there a temporary fix that we can undertake almost immediately and just get? I know they make things that you can lay on top of, and attach to the flooring there, if you will. And so that it's grittier, if it is wet. And it might be worth a while to explore what the costs
Yeah,
for
that's
something like that,
interesting.
until we're ready to take.
it would be good to, this is parks.
Yeah.
So it would be great, maybe there is a pad, like docks sometimes have to make them less slippery. I think it's important. It is in the village park, but it was constructed, by the Lake and Valley Garden Club. So I know you have a liaison with them. So I think it's important to include them. It's also important to think about that walkway because historically that we would close it off. It does not get shoveled during the winter months. So are you thinking, okay, we want this open all the time, so now we have to dedicate a crew. So then if we close it in particularly the winter time when it might be icy, we're talking about just water on there that makes it slippery. And so maybe looking into some sort of covering on those boards.
Yeah, it's
A
slippery.
solution.
It's slippery in all seasons. That's the thing. It's not.
Whenever it gets wet, or
whenever it
even
gets
when
wet.
it's dry.
Not when it's dry, it's okay,
Yeah.
but it's also very uneven. So over at the Lakefront Hotel, there are these rubber mats that they have put on some of their docks, and maybe there's a burlap dock covering of some sort that's a temporary
I'm
expedient.
sure there's stuff
But-
available.
Yeah.
But, it's, we need to deal with it, I think, if we're gonna be.
So that'd be great. So just, even if you got a ballpark, this will cost $10,000, $15,000. So that when we come to our, board meeting, we'll have that in there.
I think Mitch was going to look into.
All right.
Just that one option though, but I
Yeah.
think we should also look into the
Right.
Lake Cup
Yeah.
committee.
The money I'm thinking about,
Mhm.
fully respecting your suggestion, George, is a design budget. What'll it take for someone capable, competent to redesign that waterfront so it's a safe place to be?
My only concern is it's dangerous and it should
Now,
be
right.
addressed.
So there are two, so we're now,
As
we've got two
quickly as
cost centers.
possible.
One is a fix, interim fix, and the other is a new design. And then the third, if the design is accepted, then we have a construction budget.
We're also working on the park survey, and that is something we're including in that for lakefront. It's just a discussion of the safety of the water. We're just.
And I have a second item, and that is the dog park issue. Have the letters been, have you had a chance to review the letters, the draft letters?
I read them over and I'm working with the village attorney. I think that's not the way I would word a letter, and obviously I had I was supposed to sign them.
So, yes,
So I'm working with the village attorney and we will compose, the letter will come from the attorney that he has been directed by the village board to ascertain if this is an allowed usage, by the property owner.
Well, okay, we have written this declaratively, and I think it should be written declaratively, not seeking somebody's feedback on. We're not asking them whether it is, we're telling them that it is, and if they want to respond negatively, then we know we have something. But I think if we get into please tell us what our easement means to us approach, I don't think.
No, it would
Good.
say that Board of Trustees is looking at constructing a dog park in this area. On land owned by you, but for which we have a permanent easement. Is this what is considered a recreational use when you granted this easement? That's totally in their purview.
I don't think so. I
Okay.
think they have granted it for the purposes. So I think turning the question in the proper form is very important. And that's the way we wrote that. This is our easement. We're saying what we're going to do with it. If there's going to be an objection, it's not confrontational. The letter's form is not confrontational, but it is very clear on what our understanding of this is. We are not seeking their information of our position.
Like devil's advocate, then why are we contacting them at all?
Because we can't seem to get off the dime and put ourselves in a position as a board to make a decision, yes or no, about this dog.
I think we are talking about the legal aspect of, does this permanent easement grant this? If the owner said no, what do we say? Well, we think we've got the right to do it. It would be involved in litigation. I think you have to ask the property owner to
We
agree.
say it and let them say no. There's a big difference in approach here. We papered that we were going to build another facility for recreation. And we can explore it, but I think we have to own what we believe is our understanding of our ownership interest in this property. That's what the Board of Trustees should do. That's my
Well,
feeling.
how would you like this to proceed then? Do you want the village attorney to pen it, or do you want it to come with the board on it?
well, we just made a motion at the Parks Committee meeting to ask the board to have the village attorney
Okay.
draft these letters. We had a conversation and the mayor brought up some issues and felt that the attorney should write the letter and it should come from the attorney, which, that's fine with me. I think the important thing is that.
Is that
we
the
get-
question gets asked and answered is the
Is the
bottom.
position gets taken. That's what I
Well, I
want.
think the important thing is to get something in writing
Yes.
that clarifies and allows us to move forward. And I'm not a lawyer, so and I respect your opinion and everybody else's opinion, but it would be nice to just know one way or the other, are we able to move forward with this?
We are putting them in the position to have to hire a lawyer to figure out what they think their easement means if they're going to make a response to us. if we're asking them what our easement means, they're gonna have to look into it.
They all
If
have
we say what
lawyers
it
on
means,
staff.
That's a different kettle of
You know,
fish.
Yeah.
that's not, you know, but.
Both those institutions have an attorney representing them. I think they'd probably pass it the table and say, what's your interpretation on it? Guide us. That would be the guidance.
And follow-up to that, whether probably a response that what the purpose is, or they have some other
Money added to it.
science.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we're gonna get there. I think this is.
I think this is key. Excuse me, Joe. I think it will be key, though, ultimately for budget purposes. And the only reason I bring this up, Cindy and I were talking about this today, relative to our Route 28 DOT project. If you recall, there was some information presented, and when is that meeting? It's coming up, and we send it around to everybody or the board.
That is coming up is on Wednesday, and it is just with the town supervisor and you and I.
Oh.
And then as a result of that meeting, presumably the next meeting gets scheduled.
Okay, which would include all the boards, because obviously there are newer people on the board who are unfamiliar with this DOT project that began a few years ago. But one question we thought needed some answering was we were under the impression that the town of Otsego, where much of this project takes place on Route 28, was in favor of it, but there doesn't seem to be a written record of that information. There are 30 light lamp posts that will be part of this DOT. We could just get free from the DOT Cobra lights. And remember, there's a portion of this, a good third of it is still in the village. So it'd just be Cobra lights in the village. Or there is the concept, because this project involves putting in a sidewalk and curb so people can walk to those restaurants, walk to the pharmacy, et cetera. And it very much looks like an extension of the village. And in order to do that, we would like to have the street lamps that we've installed on our Pioneer Street and Main Street, et cetera. So to do that, it's called a betterment. In other words, we get the Cobra lights free. If we want to do nice lights, it's about 100.
The difference, yeah.
Yeah, there's a difference. 10 of those lights are in the village of Cooperstown. It's like
20 in the town.
Yeah, 10 are in the village, and that's a cost, I'll say, of like 45, 50,000. And then it's like 95,000 for 20, which are in the town. And that is an expense they probably would, they don't have the budgetary funds to do. So we were looking at, and we had our village attorney inquire of the state comptroller, if the village had funds, could we fund the betterment lights, the 20 betterment lights in the town of Otsego? And they said, you're going to like this, Joe. They said, well, you could do it, but you're going to be dinged on your audit for using village taxpayer funds. And so that's another concept we have to think about with dog park is unless there's a separate grant and there's no maintenance by our village staff, the cost of incurring in another area. But okay, I won't get into more of that.
No,
at
but if
this
we
point.
could make it, draw a distinction, we are talking about a public highway that's under the jurisdiction of the county or the town and making a betterment, making a betterment on it as opposed to a property interest that we have a right to approve. Maybe.
Okay,
So
okay,
that's
so
a
it might not be totally
Yeah,
applicable,
I don't
but
see it's.
we cannot do, I think we probably would not approve doing the 20 lights and getting dinged on an audit, is
Right.
all I'm saying.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So, all right, where are we now? Okay, so we've closed the public hearing. We've heard Joe's 2 comments on budgeting. We have the opportunity to discuss this, as I say, at our meeting, our monthly board meeting this month. If you have some ideas where you want it, they're already in to finance, they'll get on the agenda, in other words, that Jenna sends out. So we at least have something in writing for our meeting.
We just add, on page 31 of our tentative budget number 4, we do have in Parks Reserve $146,403.45.
That's the parks money for what is now Ferry Spring grant, that the funds haven't been pulled yet.
But isn't that different from Parks Reserve?
Right, but that will get rolled over, those funds, because we this for that 250,000. We can go over it, Joe. I'd prefer to go over it then.
Okay, this is our match. In other words, you say this.
That's correct. We have to ensure we have our match. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we will do that. This Cooperstown Fire Department budget request, that's this is the repair costs for the heating system, correct?
No, this is what, this
It
is,
was just totally, and so we're going to do that. Okay. I wasn't sure if this was for this or it was again our budget, our 25, 26.
that's for our
budget.
25, 26
Yeah,
budget.
okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I would like to make a motion to fund members of our HPARB to attend a New York State Preservation Meeting Training in Poughkeepsie, New York. The certified local government sort of component that involves our HPARB is on the first day. The whole conference fee is $175, plus they would reimbursement for mileage. So I would move that we cover for any HPARB members who would register and sign up and attend the preservation meeting training, that we reimburse their expenses.
I would add to that lodging, if they stay for the whole thing.
Are they going to stay for the whole thing? Because I was a little unclear on that.
If they are, I would
Yeah,
include their
but
lodging.
potentially lodging if they
All
stay.
right, and that's a substantial additional
Yeah.
amount, so it would be good. That was going to be my question. I didn't.
Well, it depends on the schedule. I mean, if it's early morning or even a mid-morning. Poughkeepsie's 2.5,
Yeah.
3 over two, a little.
It's 2 hours. It's a little
No,
over 2
I've
hours.
done it actually recently. I've gone to Hyde Park
Okay.
twice. in
But it's 2 days, so I don't think we would expect them to
My
go.
point is, they have 8 AM meetings, they have to go the night before.
Yeah.
Yep, okay. So that's the motion then, to cover their lodging,
Do we
their
have a-
registration and their mileage.
Do we have a
for
sense
any.
of how much that is?
Yeah, I just spent about $300 a night with everything.
Well, it's 175
Oh,
For the-
plus the mileage, plus the lodging is at a Days Inn, or at the inn, I can't remember,
Yeah.
but it
It's the
wasn't
GSA rate.
extravagant.
Yeah, I was gonna say, why don't we
Look at the
specify the
GSA rate.
lodging at the GSA rate?
Yeah, at the GSA rate.
All right.
Perfect. There, that's the motion. Second by Audrey, all in favor?
I,
Unfortunately, I have some sad news. New York State posted all the the funding for multi-family finance projects, the 9% tax credit. As you know, we were quite hopeful that a project in the village of Cooperstown, 217 Main, with the Vecino Group would proceed. I've spoken to the state agencies. It was number 4 on the list. Remember that we are in the Mohawk Valley Economic District. There were 3 projects selected, 2 being in Utica and 1 being in Gloversville. So our project was not one that they will receive credit for. when this was announced, this list, this is online, this is public information. I found it there. There have been conversations. As you know, we did apply for 1 million in Restore New York funding for this project. So if we should receive that still, what we do is we talk to the state agency involved and tell them the status of the project. This HCR credit would reopen in end of August, September of next year, and it's Vecinos Group plan to reapply. Okay. Just wanted to bring everybody up to speed on that. And should we say the small project fund? We should maybe just say that today Cindy and I were asked to participate in a Zoom call with Mohawk Valley Regional Economic Development District, which wonderfully is coordinating the small project fund of our New York Forward Award. This is a small amount that like 300,000 with minus the administrative fee of anyone we had selected, but we think it's really opportune to have our economic development district involved in this. And they're going to move forward, and they're moving quite rapidly. We realize they're hoping to have a news release and information on the availability of the small project funds. We reserved a room, this room, at the end of the month. I believe it's the 24th, at 6 o'clock. The information will be in the papers, but then they will meet with the public here to further talk about the project. We've told them that we think there'll be very, very many interested people, but perhaps not after they hear all the parameters, because again, this is it's a New York program. It has MWBE requirements and other sort of requirements, and the contractors can't just be your local contractors. The contractors have to come from the state approved lists, et cetera. So it's a little more onerous than we would have thought, but it's still going to be a great way to learn about the potential for maybe another grant that we could do, Main Street grant, in order to facilitate building owners on our Main Street. All right. Was there anything else?
Mike Simons.
Oh, yes, sorry. This came in today, and if it looks a little funny, it was because it was an email that was consistently blocked by our email server. But Mike has indicated that Cazenovia, from whom we buy our used ones, will receive their new truck potentially tomorrow, and will receive by midweek their second one. So they have a process totally in place. We talked about this before, where we will take our truck up, and they'll take their one they're selling to us to the same place. Equipment gets transferred from each of the ambulances accordingly. So this is in our budget. This was an approved expense, but I move that we approve these payment of invoices to the village of Cazenovia for the two ambulances. The VIN numbers are on the invoice, and they are each for $75,000. Is there a second by George? All in.
Mhm.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, great. Thank you. Thank you for that. Reminding me, Cindy.
Mhm.
All right, nothing else? Our organizational meeting
is adjourned.